Hello humans, it's your host Cora, and this week we're going to talk about fear. And before we get into that, I wanted to confirm for those of you who are watching this episode on the YouTube channel, no, you are not losing your mind. Yes, I did change the color of my hair. I had someone ask me, they're like, is that your real hair? And I was like, yes, I don't wear wigs. So this is my actual hair coming out of my scalp, but I'm looking at my photo, my video down here. The color is not the same, obviously, so it's red. For those of you who are listening on the Spotify and Apple channels, the video is not clear to you, but if you can't see it, just imagine I have dyed my hair red. It doesn't look as red as it is in most lights. Right now we have a very gray, overcast, rainy day here in Michigan, and so it looks more like a red gold when I'm looking at it right now. In certain lights you can see the redder shade, but when I get outside, if the sun is bright, it looks a lot redder. And so yes, I have dyed my hair. These curls, however, or waves or whatever you want to call them, they are mine. I just don't typically wear my hair this way. It's a real challenge when you live in a high, humid climate to style your curly wavy hair in a way that doesn't just like expand into a frizz ball. And where I live in Michigan, it's very, very humid. I think I looked up on the humidity scale for different areas, and we're at like 100% or something. So it's like one of the worst humid settings, and so it's very humid here. And so typically my curls / waves are all over the place, but I tried out this really strong hold gel to see if I could get it to kind of stay. So this is kind of my natural level of curliness. They look a little bit more relaxed actually at the moment. They tend to be a little bit tighter. I put in a lot of conditioner, and so I think and products, so I think that's kind of like pulled them down a little bit. But this is my normal amount of kind of curl wave. But yeah, I just don't typically wear it this way because it's a mess. I'm usually straightening or brushing or flattering it or curling it with the iron to like get it to lay a certain way so that I'm not fighting the elements. And so I'm trying out the gel approach and see if that works, but I'm trying to wear things a bit more natural. So I don't like spending a lot of time on hair and makeup, so if I can just wash my hair, put a bunch of gel on it, and let it dry, and it does this, I'm like, great, perfect. And yeah, so I'm a very low maintenance kind of person. That's why I don't have any, filters or makeup or anything on in my videos. I'm not that girly. It's fun to glam up once in a while. So like when I go do events or I'm speaking, I will, put on all the makeup and do the hair nice and have on, the pantsuit and all that. But typically when I'm just at home, very low key. We've got too much to do, frankly, to just be spending a lot of time on our hair and stuff. And so, or if you love that stuff, give me tips. Maybe I just am not truly appreciating and enjoying the process. But yes, long and short of it, you're not crazy. I did dye my hair red. My natural hair color is kind of like this dark blonde, light brown color. And so I was just feeling very autumny, and I wanted to like embrace the autumnal season. And so I decided to give red a shot. It was like the one color I had not tried dyeing my hair in the past. I've done pink and blue, and obviously blonde was my go-to for a long time. And I've done different shades of brown, and I've done like a very auburny kind of red, like a dark browny red. But I have never done like a lighter kind of strawberry-ish, more like true red. So anyway, enough about my hair. We're here to talk about fear. And fear came up because I was thinking about the season. And I love this time of year, not just because October was the month I got married, and so it's a very like romantic time of the year for us. The seasons are it's very beautiful in Michigan this time of year, this season. All the leaves are changing. The weather is finally cooling off. There's a lot of fun things to do in Michigan that are very season appropriate. So for example, there's, apple picking, there's corn mazes, there's hay rides, there's pumpkin patches and cider and donuts. And so it was a great season to fall in love. And so there's a lot to do in October that I love. But one of the things that I love the most is Halloween itself, because it's fun. It's so much fun. And if you've read any of my books, you'll know this about me. You'll know that I love scary stuff, spooky stuff. That's all super fun. And so when we were putting up all of the ghouls and stuff in the yard, let's be clear, it was my wife who's doing it. her major project every season is to drag all of the I don't know if they're considered lawn ornaments, decorations, let's call them decorations, out front and put them up for the season. So we have ghouls, we have a cemetery, we have a skeleton hanging off of a window, we have this animatronic that when you walk past it, it like opens up and says this scary stuff. And so, the kids are already like jumping back and cackling and that kind of thing. And so that's a lot of fun. And so as this was kind of happening, it made me think about, why do we love certain scary things? Like, not everyone. I want to preface this. If you don't love scary stuff, this probably won't resonate with you. But for those of us who do enjoy a gentle scare or some gentle spookiness, the question is like, why do we think that that's fun? Why do we think that that's a great time? But there are these other things that are really scary that are not at all fun, right? They're not at all having a good time. And so of course, intellectually, we know, because sometimes the consequences of the not fake scary stuff is really high. So like if someone is actually in physical danger, or if something bad really is happening, or we're seeing really terrible things in the world, I'm not talking about that kind of fear. I'm not talking about that kind of despair. I'm talking about the smaller fear that we deal with in our day-to-day lives. So for example, if you're anxious about whether or not you're going to get this particular job, or if you're anxious about like what's going to happen in this friendship, where it's like it would be hard or difficult, possible negative outcomes of that experience, but it's not life or death. So we're not talking about big scary stuff. We're talking kind of the low level anxiety of living our day-to-day lives, regardless of what the consequences of these lower level experiences are. And so thinking about all of that this time of year, it made me kind of question, could we look at our fear differently? Could we explore our fears in a different way that would make them much lighter, much more manageable, much easier to do? And I think the key to it would be reframing it with a sense of adventure. So what do I mean by that? So when I think about things that we think is fun fear, going to use air quotes here if you can't see it, fun fear, like the kind that we enjoy as kids, or the kind that we enjoy when we watch a scary movie or we read a spooky book. The fun fear is that there's a sense of adventure, like we want to know what's going to happen, we want to know what's coming next, there's a curiosity there. And so it begs the question of me wondering, could we apply that sense of curiosity, that sense of adventure to these low-level fears that we're trying to manage? Now, before we look at that, I guess I should make the case or argue for why should we be managing these fears? Like, why is fear a problem? I often hear from people like Pema Chodron, or people who I listen to who do a lot of this really heavy mental work, emotional work, that strive really to give us the tools we need to be grounded in our daily lives. Those, let's call them teachers, those guides, they often hear, or at least what I'm hearing, is that fear is not a problem, right? They're like, fear is not a problem. It's natural. It's there. You can work through it. You can move through it. It doesn't have to control you. Fear is not a problem. But the reality is that fear definitely feels like a problem for most of us, because it hijacks our mind. When I'm really scared about something, I can't think. I can't focus. I keep coming back to what's going to happen to me. Am I safe? Am I going to be okay? My mind is really kind of stuck in these doom loops, let's call them. And so I'm definitely not mentally clear. I'm definitely not mentally settled when I am dealing with fear. Physically, I don't feel great either. And that's churned up a bit by the emotion itself. So when I'm experiencing fear physically, my stomach's really upset. I feel like I have to go to the bathroom all the time. Sometimes I'm really tired or exhausted just because of that adrenal response. It keeps coming, through the body in waves almost, and it really wears you out. It really depletes you. So physically we suffer when we're dealing with chronic fear. Emotionally also, there's that emotional fatigue. There's this struggle with regulating the emotions. Like we feel like we're all over the place. I feel like when I'm dealing with chronic stress or fear of any kind, I'm also very short with other people. Like I can't really be emotionally available to them because I'm just consumed with what's freaking me out. So it's like I can't really be present for other people. So this fear, this low-level fear, think of it more maybe like an anxiety, is a real challenge, and it definitely impacts the way we live our lives. It impacts our ability to relax into it. It impacts our ability to be functional in our day-to-day lives. And so can we shift that by applying this attitude that we have when we are kids, or that when we are into the fun, spooky stuff? Can we shift our minds to not see this as, oh my gosh, this is a terrible thing that's going to happen to me. It's absolutely awful. Nothing's going to be great. That kind of the dooming, for lack of a better word, that we do in the mind. Can we shift that to what's going to happen, and is it going to be okay, and what's going to come next? And so I've been categorizing that emotion, as I was thinking about how to talk to you about it today, as a sense of adventure or a sense of curiosity. And so I have some ideas that I want to share with you today about how maybe we can reframe our experiences. And again, this is not for really serious stuff. This is not for, your whole house just burned down and you've lost everything and you're scared about what's going to happen to you next. That's not a, oh, this is going to be fun. What's next? I'm not asking you to be unrealistic, right? We all have to meet ourselves where we are. I'm thinking more about kind of the way we tend to expect the worst from situations when maybe we could expect the best, or we tend to fear worst possible outcomes when in reality usually the better thing happens. And so I'll give you some examples of that, and also share this idea of reframing, of how we're going to reframe that. And so before we do that, we get into the meat of the episode. I just wanted to thank everyone who was so kind, and you got my new book, Final Cut. You've been leaving reviews for it on Amazon. Thank you so much. I released this at the end of September. It's got 3 novellas in it, right in time for Halloween. So the first one is I'll just read you the description so that I don't get distracted. When Laurie's screenwriting dreams crash and burn, she retreats to her mother's house to start over, only for her mom to be killed in a hit and run soon after. Now Mom's back as a ghost, gleefully reenacting scenes from her favorite horror movies and pestering Laurie. But someone else is watching Laurie too, and they're not a fan of her little investigation. Equal parts hilarious, heartfelt, and harrowing, Final Cut is a love letter to horror fans and mother-daughter bonds with a bloody twist. And so someone asked me what the inspiration for that story was, and it was basically, I was like, what would it be like if my mom came back as a ghost and she was haunting me? And the premise of that is because she really loved horror stories. I've talked about that before, about this, I can't even remember all the things we watched growing up, but she loved the Twilight Zone, she loved Alfred Hitchcock movies, she loved all things spooky and fun and vampires and things like that. And so I could just imagine a scenario in which if she came back as a ghost and she was haunting me, how she could play tricks on me, how she would do funny and scary things to, cheer me up, or just because she was having a good time tormenting me. So I wrote the story kind of with that idea in mind. And then the other 2 stories in the collection. So also, I'm getting a little distracted, but people had said so are they short stories, or are they what is in the collection? So novellas are, think of them as short novels or long short stories, right? So they're not quite as long as a full novel, a full book, which is why you put them together in a collection. I think Stephen King has a collection called Full Dark, No Stars, and it's also a collection of novellas. So they're long enough, they're too long to be stories, but just a tad too short to be books, on their own, stories on their own. So I hope that's clear. So that's why they're all together in a single collection. And I won't read the descriptions to the other 2 stories for you, because I'm not trying to turn this into a mid-roll ad of my own book in the middle of an episode. But the other 2 are also kind of themed for Halloween. That first one explicitly, it happens on Halloween, right? It happens it's a Halloween season thing. And so that's why I wanted to tell you about that one, because it's funny. It's funny, and it's it's in line with the season and what we're doing now. But the other 2, one is the zombie apocalypse has happened, and this woman is surviving it with her dog. And then the third one is this woman has a daughter who has befriended a ghost, and it turns out the ghost is like a vengeful spirit. And so she's like trying to navigate the situation where she wants her daughter to have a friend, but also she doesn't want to like upset this wrathful ghost who she has now befriended. And so I really enjoyed writing them. I had a really great time making them. And so I just wanted to thank everyone who had already left a review. I think it was like 20 something reviews the last time I checked on Amazon. And so thank you guys for leaving reviews. Thank you for telling me how much you like the collection. It was a lot of fun for me to write it. And so it's always great to hear that you guys are enjoying it too. So thank you so much for that. And then also someone had asked me other Halloween reads. So I just wanted to point out that I also have a short story collection full of vampires called Thirst. They do not sparkle. I feel like I have to preface that with they don't sparkle, because if you were expecting something like really sweet and lovey, a couple of them have romance in them for sure. But these are more like the vampires I grew up on, which were like Anne Rice's vampires. They can be emotional or tortured, definitely human, but they're not necessarily sweet and pretty like Edward Cullen, if that's how we want to call him. I don't know how I'm going to describe him. And then there's always the Castle Cove books, which are like my versions of Choose Your Own Adventure, like scary books. Like me, I grew up reading Goosebumps and Choose Your Own Adventure books, and I loved that stuff. And so these are basically the adult, much scarier versions, and they're so thick because it's a choose your own path. So like you get to a certain point in the story and then you get to decide where it goes next. And so there are a lot of different versions and options, and I made a lot of notes in this one. This was my author copy when I was editing it, so that's why it's so thick. But anyway, those are my Halloween reads for you, and I guess this is my self-sponsored mid-roll ad or something. I don't even know. But now let's get back into the meat of the episode, in which I tell you my suggestions or my ideas for how we can work with fear with this reframing of a sense of adventure. I guess I'm coming at this as someone who deals with anxiety chronically, right? So I've been very open that I deal with anxiety, that things make me very anxious, particularly things that are connected to safety, because I had a very unstable childhood. I had a very volatile upbringing, let's say. And so anytime my sense of safety feels threatened or I feel unmoored in some way, it does bring up a lot of anxiety. It does bring up a lot of fear for me. And it's hard for me to view that as a good time. But it would be really beneficial for me if I came with this with a sense of adventure. And so how would I approach this myself? And maybe you will find value in this suggestion as well, which is that one is recognition of your own abilities, right? I think we chronically give ourselves less credit than we are due. So we feel like, the external circumstances are far more powerful. This other person is far more powerful. Like, what am I going to do against this? How could I possibly address this? But, you are smart. You are clever. You have skills and abilities. You probably have a lot more opportunity and resource at your disposal than you realize. So for example, if you really think about it, like there are people that maybe could help you, and if you don't have people in your life, you have your own, I'm speaking as someone who's also hyper independent, you have your own resources and skills to rely on. And think about all the things you've already come through, that you've already survived, really questionable or dicey situations or challenging times, and you moved through those just fine. And so I think one way to reframe these fearful circumstances is by investing more in your trust with yourself, like believing that you can survive anything, you can move through anything, you can handle anything that came your way. And so that's absolutely the first piece of advice that I would suggest, is this idea that, so I'll ask it as a question: do you believe in yourself? Do you have faith in yourself and your abilities? Do you think that there is no challenge on this earth so great that you couldn't overcome it? And if the answer is anything less than yes, then that's a great area to work on. And I say that as someone who absolutely struggles with self-belief as well. So I am not lecturing you on this. I'm not giving you a hard time about this. I too also really struggle with believing in myself 100% all the time. It can just be a real challenge when, you just don't know how things are going to go or how they're going to work out. But when I do emphasize confidence, or when I invest in that confidence, and how do I invest in my confidence? I pump myself up, I affirm myself, I get my friends or loved ones to remind me of the things that I have done. I'm sure this is super fun for them. Sitting there and having to talk me through this, be like, well, don't you remember when you did this? Oh yeah, that's right, okay. And so I'm sure that's not fun for them, but it's helpful to me to remind me, okay, yes, actually I've got this, actually I can do this, this is not as scary as it is, and then get to the meat of the matter, which is, getting to the actual solutions. Because part of the reason why, fear is disruptive or so problematic, I guess, is because it impedes us from connecting with our abilities, right? So if you had absolute faith and trust in yourself and your abilities, then it wouldn't be so hard for you to push that fear to the side and be like, okay, well, what do we need to do about it? You would stay in your autonomy, you would stay in this position of self-ownership, you would see the problem and you'd be like, yeah, this is super scary, but I know what I need to do, so this is what we're going to do. You'd be very self-possessed, let's say, in that position. And self-possessed feels like a strange word in a Halloween episode because possession immediately makes you think of something else. But the only thing possessing you is you. Weird joke. So when you are in control of yourself, when you are self-possessed of all your own abilities, it's much harder for fear to run amok in your life, to get you off track, to scare you into inaction. And so my first question/tip would be, do you believe in yourself? Do you believe in your abilities? And if you do, it doesn't matter what's happening. You can definitely come at this more with a sense of adventure and curiosity because you know that you've got this. And so it's less scary. If you knew you were going to survive it or pull through it, then it's less scary. And that's part of the fun of being a kid who enjoys scary things, right? It's because we know that we're not actually going to get hurt. We're not actually, bad things aren't actually going to happen. So it's fun. But how we create that for ourselves as adults is we have to have complete faith in our abilities, and that will create that sense of safety that we'd be missing otherwise. The second technique that I like to use to reframe fear is curiosity. Now, I have used this in so many different ways. If I'm having a very anxious, racy mind, for example, if I realize I'm all over the place that day, I can't keep my thoughts in order, they're kind of just racing all over the place, there's so much to do, I have a lot of anxiety about how things are going to turn out, or I'm trying to get something done, and I'm like, oh, I don't have enough time. When that is happening, the curiosity, how that's applied to this instance, is I just get curious about what's going on in here. What am I thinking, and why am I thinking it, and what triggered this, and what's making it worse, what's making it better. And so it's not me saying things to myself this is terrible, why am I so scattered, why can't I get focused, I'm a dumb person, I'm a useless person, I'm whatever negative things. I can't even think of what the terrible negative things I would be saying to myself about this. But we are really hard on ourselves often when we don't feel like we're measuring up to our own high standards. So whatever that standard would be in this instance, in which I felt like I should be doing something else, or I should be handling this better, whatever that was, instead of that, I'd be like, well, what is going on here? I'm like, what triggered that? And so this idea of opening it up and removing that self-judgment, because that self-judgment is really the problem, right? When we look at what we're doing and we judge ourselves really harshly, and then we make ourselves feel bad, and then we kind of spiral on from there. At least for me, it's a spiral. It definitely feels like it's getting out of control from that point onward. And so I reframe it by just getting curious about what's happening rather than judging myself for what's happening. Now, in the case of external circumstances where it's not like an internal conflict that I'm trying to make peace with or to try to loosen up a little bit with this curiosity, if it's an external situation, I can apply curiosity in the same way. So, for example, let's say that I'm competing to win something, and there's so many instances in my life where I'm trying to compete in different spaces. So who knows? Trying to compete to get a speaking gig, trying to compete to get my book out there, to get it seen in front of more people, any of these situations. Instead of, again, self-judging, giving myself a hard time, or assuming the worst, like no one's ever gonna do that, no one's ever gonna buy that, it's going to be the worst thing I've ever written. I'm not going to get that speaking opportunity, or if I do go, I'm going to mess it up and I'm going to sound dumb. And instead of expecting the worst of the situation, I could expect the best. I can think about, and not even, I want to clarify this. It's not even like you're lying to yourself or trying to force yourself to believe something that may or may not happen. So it's not even like, no, don't be worried. It's not going to go bad. You're going to go and you're going to have a great time and you're going to meet people and it's going to be fun, right? Not even kind of that self-talk, which can feel fake sometimes or feel forced. Maybe not fake, but forced, definitely. Like you're trying to make yourself have a good time when really you're just an anxious mess. The alternative to that is instead just not even saying how you think it will go, just being like, how will it go? Like, I wonder what will happen. Like, I've been lucky enough to get the speaking opportunity and I'm going to go in a few weeks. I wonder what's going to happen. Like, I wonder what kind of amazing food I'm going to eat in the city I've never been to. I wonder what the travel day will be like. I wonder who I'll sit next to on the plane, or I wonder who I'll meet there. I wonder if I'll like, this person I've been emailing for months about setting up this event. I wonder if, what's going to happen. Like, what are we going to do? And how am I going to feel after? And I want, so it's this idea of just being curious about what's going to happen. So that's distinctly different than some of this false kind of, I don't like the word false, so I'm going to stop using that, but this kind of forced of, don't worry, go, you're going to have a great time. And every part of you not believing that, right? Every part of you being like, I don't believe that for a second. I'm absolutely terrified that this is going to be the worst thing that could happen. Instead of that, just being like, I don't know what's going to happen. And for me, when I say that, even just in my body, I can feel this kind of like, oh, well, we're going to find out. Like, that definitely feels more adventurous than this kind of tug of war of don't be negative, be positive, like going back and forth. It's like you're not even being positive or negative. You're just opening yourself up entirely to whatever happens. Like, it could go anyway, and you're going to get to find out. And how fun is that? And so I would recommend trying to cultivate that sense of openness, curiosity in the face of fears, especially ones that feel chronic, or especially ones where you don't really know what's going to happen. Instead of being like, I don't know what's going to happen, be like, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's like the same words, but it's a totally different tone, totally different perspective. And so I think that those are the two tips that help me the most when I think about reframing my fears into a sense of adventure, as I really work on my self-belief. Do I believe in myself and my abilities? Because if I did, then it won't feel like I have anything to be scared of, because I know nothing's going to happen to me, because I've got me, I can do this, I'm perfectly capable of handling the situation. And then the second one, that sense of curiosity, that openness, not forcing yourself to be falsely positive or not letting yourself go into the doom and gloom negative spiral either, just being like, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's okay, because I completely believe in my own abilities and my ability to handle it. So let's just see what's going to come next. Like, this could be amazing, or it could be a total shit show, and I get to tell everyone about it later and laugh over, tea or coffee or something down the road. Tell my friends. So for example, I had to do an event where there was a lot of technical problems, and I could have been super stressed about that. Or later, I had a really great story to tell my friends. And so just think about it. Think about whatever fears or anxieties you've got going on in your life. See if you can apply this sense of adventure. See if you need more self-belief in your life, more belief in your abilities, in your strength and talents as a person. And can you bring a little bit of curiosity to the situation to open it all up and make it much more workable and manageable for you? And that's it for this week, dear human. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And if you did, and you have a topic you'd like me to talk about in the future, don't forget that you can always email me and ask me your questions or let me know about something that's on your mind. I'm happy to address those in future episodes. Otherwise, I hope you have an amazing Halloween, and I will be back in a couple weeks with another episode of A Well Cared For Human. And until then, please take good care of you. This episode of A Well Cared For Human was written and produced by me, Corey Marie. The music was by Late Night Feeler and Esther Abrami. If you like what I'm doing here, please consider visiting my Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you get early ad-free access to the episodes, as well as a monthly patrons-only Q&A, bonus videos, and more. Not to mention that your Patreon support lets me know that you find value in the show and want it to continue. You can find me on Patreon by visiting www.patreon.com/Corey Marie. If you can't support the show financially, that is okay. You can still subscribe to the show, leave a review of the show, and recommend the show to your friends, not just the neurotic ones. All of this helps so much. And as always, thank you for listening.